Thank you, Mark. For this research, there were two clear objectives. Firstly, to understand why music is underutilised strategically, and secondly, to identify the barriers and opportunities for using consistent use of music. What do we mean by consistent use of music? We mean advertisers who use the same music track over 2 or more consecutive campaigns. For a good example is Boots or BA. So how did we answer these questions? Well, we consulted with the experts. We spoke to 62 people from the industry. On the creative side, we spoke to Sir John Hegarty, we spoke to Dave Trott, we spoke to Peter Souter. On the planning side, we spoke to Lucy Jameson, we spoke to Rory Sutherland. And then on the client side, we spoke to Elizabeth Fagan from Boots and also Margaret Joblin from British Gas. So why is music strategically underutilised? We have some videos that explain some of the reasons why. Just a quick note about the video. They were filmed in field, so there's a bit of variable about the sound quality.
Generally speaking, marketeers are not trained to speak in terms of music. They understand how to speak in terms of colour, and they form and function and product benefits are all well understood, but music is still this ephemeral, intangible thing. It's you can't pin it up on a board, you can't poke at it, it goes by in a flash, and most people don't have a language to reference it.
We're all more used to looking and judging visual stuff. We're more used to looking and judging words, actually less used to being asked to apply that to music. And there are a lot of people who are really not musical, and they feel even less comfortable around that.
It's considered to be a creative call rather than a strategic one. As a strategist, feel that you had a right to raise it and knock it back and forth, but making the decision that it's vital and it should be like this in the brief feels too directive.
This saying that we have here that is that music is often the last thing thought about, the first thing complained about.
If you're working on a new campaign, music isn't the thing which you're starting out with, it tends to come a bit later, and I think that is probably a mistake.
So as can be seen, music is a complicated area and one which is hard to navigate. As Lucy said, we feel comfortable with words and visuals, but not music. As Dan said, there is no language around music. And as Loz says, it is often the creative's shout. So for a planner to feel that he can direct on music can feel like you're treading on someone else's toes. This leads to a position where many people think that it's an afterthought. So the first thing complained about and the last thing thought about. But yet music's really, really powerful. It can connect an audience. It can reflect culture. It can showcase emotion, a positioning, a feeling. It can convey a message, and it can help clients make money. Now, all our experts agreed with that. So why and what are the barriers of using music consistently? Well, there's 3 barriers. The first one is that we're in an age where it's hard to get the consumer's attention. It's hard to grab them. So often agencies will use surprise, disruption, and jolt in order to get attention. But that can jar against familiarity. There's a feeling that people will get bored. They hear the same track over and over again and will switch off. It can feel creatively restricted. It's another regulation, another rule, another mandatory that can shut down creativity rather than opening it up. However, our experts could also see some opportunities for music.
The reason to be consistent rather than tactical feels like it would come down to a long-term objective, which is branding or the need to build a consistent emotional space over time.
I think music was key to the success of the campaign. campaign. It really allowed us to represent women in the way in which they wanted to be represented in the 21st century and to take ownership of that. And therefore, every time there was a film, a Boots film, then immediately it was recognisable, but recognised in a very upbeat way.
You know, if you look at a lot of the wisdom now, you know, how brands grow, it's about how do you create memory structures, how do you help people access you very quickly, because then, you know, recognisability happens faster, they know what you're about, know what you stand for.
If you believe in any of that stuff like Byron Sharp about brands needing to be top of mind more often, more times, more places, with more people, then it is about just keeping on using those brand assets and hammering them home.
What I do know is that safety went up, and of course safety is never ever mentioned. So I think something like music, it can be as obscure a correlation between you play Lacme and people think that the airline is safer. I think it saves money because it's effective and because it's efficient. So I think if you're looking to establish saliency in customers and potential customers' mind of your airline, and you've got that consistent branding device, then it saves money. Yeah, you can spend less for the same effect.
So some real clear opportunities about using music consistently. It can drive instant recognition. It can help to position a brand. Lovely example was British Gas, using that to own the territory of the home. It can reposition a brand as well. Elizabeth was talking about how Boots moves to the 21st century. It can create an emotional connection. Boots, Here Come the Girls was all about celebration. BA was all about reassurance. It can build trust. It's something trusting about a familiar friend. And in all the research, I love the fact about the BA campaign, that one of the big things that went up in tracking was safety. And lastly, it can save you money. So it can do some really, really strong things. But what else does the industry want to know? So we consulted with the industry. What we wanted to know was new information about how consistency can be used, and also guidance on how you can navigate a complicated world. I'm now going to pass you to my business partner who will tell you about the science. Say it again.